So I just titled this "End of the Year Reflection with Greg Meredith." We can change the title later.
Yeah, sure.
It's not really a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, I know you had some questions that you wanted to
Yeah.
address. So go ahead. I mean, I'll let you drive for a bit, and there are a few things I want to
Okay.
touch base on as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually pretty blunt in my communication style, but let's just kind of go through it. So, we talked yesterday. Some of it was, I want to remain private, but it was basically, I was just trying to address some of the concerns the community was having. And then, so I think the first question I asked you was about like, what's kind of going on with Pythia. And I understand that that's kind of under a legal
Yeah,
sort of thing right
yeah. So
now.
so so
But
we're in the middle of active negotiations, and because those negotiations involve legal proceedings, I can't really say a lot. But what I can say to give some color to things is that we do have a position of considerable leverage. And so uh, Pythia will, I feel confident, let's say, that Pythia will see the light in terms of right action. So right action, there are a few options, right? So one of which is that they give the remaining rocks back. I think that's unlikely because it ends up being a taxable event for them, which would completely decimate their position. So there are two other possibilities. One is, of course, that they deliver on the companies that they have promised contractually, and the other possibility that I would leave open is we're in the next year we're going to be um, engaged in some enterprise pilot projects, and so Pythia wants to engage on those as a way of delivering uh, um, the projects on the platform that they should have. That would be another way out for them. That's you know good for them, good for the community, good for the platform. So those are the three options that are available, and I feel like we have the leverage to insist that they take an option that is right. Um, but I can't say much more than that because we are engaged in active negotiations. Does that make sense?
yeah, it makes perfect sense. I guess the second question would be a more general question, and be I'm trying to again put these questions in perspective from the community, or at least the way I see it. It's not really, I don't really have a horse in this race. I mean, I've been with you, Greg, for 2015, since 2015 on this
Yeah.
generally. So but I mean, I guess again, the hard questions would be like, do you think it was a mistake that Pythia was given any type of funding, or do you think that the way everything's turning out is going to be a net positive for the co-op? Because the
Yeah.
agreements that you have on paper with these, with Reflective and Pythia, is that the revenue from these companies, if they generate revenue, are going to the co-op.
That's
Which,
correct. That's correct, right?
yeah.
So in both cases, it's 80% of the liquidity event, which in either case ends up being a tidy sum for the cooperative. Um, for Pythia, I think they're sort of in a much more challenging position as a result. I'm not expecting the co-op to see a lot in terms of the liquidity events off of the companies. But you never know. You never know. There could still be one or two home runs, and the co-op could make out quite well. So that's but those contracts are up on the GitHub, and anyone who wants to read them can read them and see that the co-op is actually in a fairly significant position with respect to both of those. And just as a reminder, it was a year ago that we mentioned these facts to the community, so the community shouldn't forget them. It's kind of important to understand that on paper, at least the co-op is uh, is is in a pretty strong position with respect to both.
Okay, I got you. I guess the next question would be sort of like on price discovery, which is like generally impossible to do at the moment. But a lot of people are, apparently tracking the not portfolio companies, but the reflective fund and the Pythia fund, and noticing without any sort of official announcement from either firm, accusing them of dumping, millions of rocks on the market, which is hurting investors or whatever. I'm not trying to sort of hype anything up, obviously, but I mean this is a major concern. And so do you want to kind of maybe just address how you see, because I mean it is in their legal sort of, they can take the rocks out of the fund and use them for operations, right? That
Yeah,
is part of the contract.
there's nothing we can do to stop them, right? They've hit their milestone. Well, I mean, Pythia is different thing, right? Because they didn't hit their milestone, but Reflective hit their milestones, and so the rocks are theirs. They get to do with it whatever they want. Um, Ultimately, I think you know it's probably not the wisest move to try to sell the rocks because they're not going to get very much, and it will only drive um, the price down on the markets where they are attempting to sell the rock. I think the wisest thing to do at this point, at least for the next 2 or 3 months, is to hold rock. Now, if they're in a financial position where they feel like they don't have the luxury to do that, I don't know what to say to that. But the absolute wisest thing for the next 2 months is to hold the rocks.
Got
Um,
it.
yeah,
Okay.
and after that, I can't say, but I can say that within that time frame, we're going to start to see some events that are going to um, change the market considerably.
Understood. Okay. Well, let you take a minute to get out of your car, and I can sideline my questions if someone else wants to step in, because I still have more questions, but I don't want to take up the entire hour or anything.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, it's I'm in the house. I'm ready to chat more. So don't worry about that.
Okay. Well,
Um,
I mean, the next logical question I would be, interested in discussing, and obviously, Greg, when we talked about this, you had sort of a different answer for me, and I was quite surprised when like two new board members that are accordingly, in a temporary position. They have to be reelected at the next membership meeting if they want to stay on the board. But as far as I understand it, but
that's correct. Yes.
you just kind of discuss like how you feel about the two new members, how what their function will be, what expertise they'll bring to the board, and otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, Steve Ross Talbot is one of the board members, and we have a relationship going back 15 years. He was, in many ways, my counterpart um, in bringing the mobile process calculi into the workflow space. So he was responsible for driving the W3C standard WS choreography, which was kind of a counterpoint to the BEPL and BPML. Both, all of those efforts were aimed at, PyCalculus based or mobile process calculus based smart contracting for, for an earlier generation, but still at internet scale. So I mean, he's a very logical choice. I mean, having two overlapping members on our chain US and our chain Europe is, I don't know if I mean, there's pros and cons to that. But I heartily recommend Steve for a number of reasons. He's a very good guy, and I think he would serve the board well. I don't know the other board member. I didn't get a chance to speak with him or interview him. And to that end, I expressed to the board members when we voted that I felt like the process was a little rushed, and that sort of brought into question the legitimacy of the process. I think I think that we should have been a little bit more slow and introduced the board members to the wider community before going into any sort of process like the one that we did. I mean, that's I mean, the board is within their rights by the bylaws, but both Evan and I felt that the process um, didn't give these newly appointed board members the same sort of shot at legitimacy that everyone else has had. So I have sort of mixed feelings about the process that was used here, but I mean, I think both are capable, talented people, and I look forward to being able to engage them, and especially on some of our upcoming enterprise partnerships.
Got it.
Um, that said, I will say that almost as soon as they were elected, there was an opportunity for someone to potentially occupy a board seat that would have helped us out financially. But we used up our board seats at that point. So,
Right. It's kind of shooting yourself in the foot a little bit.
a little bit, yeah.
I mean, it's a strategy thing. It's not the end of the world or anything, but I don't know. I would be very curious. I mean, we're doing this kind of interview. It was just kind of turn it into an interview, but we're kind of doing this by a fly by night thing. It'd be nice to have the other board members on. I understand it's the holidays and stuff, but like, people are generally concerned about these things. I mean, a lot of people I talk to, for example, you don't necessarily have to comment on this if you want to, Greg, but like they don't think Evan should even be on the board. And it's
Oh,
like,
because he has shares in Pythia, or why?
I mean, the dude hasn't been on in the community at all for a whole year. I mean, no offense to Evan. I mean, I worked with him for almost 2 years on Coin Interview on my side project, so I don't have anything against him. But I'm just literally repeating what the community is saying.
Yeah, I hear you. You know what? Evan is very, very astute, and a big asset to the board. So I don't side with the community. I think Evan has a difficult time engaging with a lot of the kind of discourse that goes on in Discord. I confess I do too. I find that the way people conduct themselves on these member channels is inconsiderate, and especially in terms of people's time and um, and energy. Right, we need those channels to be sort of models of communication, rather than sort of the kind of communication that you have no interest in engaging in. So I kind of get where Evan is coming from. Um, and he is certainly very clued in on the issues that the co-op is facing. So I support Evan's.
I think it's a good thing that you're standing behind your board members. I mean, like, look, the reality is people are going to take shots at this entire process all the way to wherever we go, right?
There's no question about that. There's
yeah.
like people are going to be dissatisfied, and thank God, we need to have vigorous debate about how things are done. I mean, the most important thing, the phrase that comes to me is making the most of our differences. Right. It would be sad if we can't make something of our differences. Right. And what the worst we could do is make the least out of our differences. What we really want to do is make the most of our differences. When we have differences of opinion, we need to be able to welcome them and get something out of the dialogue and debate, so that we hear each other, and get some value out of each other's different opinions and perspectives. And I would hope that more of that would be happening in the Discord, so that people could engage in vigorous debate, but healthy debate, and debate that results in an improvement in process and improvement in results.
I agree with you. I actually think that the entire crypto market is in a tailspin right now, and part of it is just like literally facing the reality of like these assets devaluing, including our own, by an enormous amount. But anyways, not I don't want to take up the entire discussion on price discovery. Let's just keep moving. The I guess how okay. Let me just ask you another blunt question, Greg. If things were to be to have a redo, would have with regards to the immersion technology, would you have signed the immersion deal? or not. It wasn't you, it was the board, but
The board, yeah.
yeah, it's not you. Yeah, I want to be very
Okay,
clear.
but I want to, so it's kind of, it's a funny thing. It's hard to say what a redo is. The biggest thing is I really wish I've been able to turn to my financial officers and say, give me an accurate picture of our books, and have that picture be, informing our decision. But we just the hand wasn't as tightly on the wheel as it should have been at that point. And so that, I think, was a real mistake. And had I had a more accurate picture of our books, I would not have voted in favor of the immersion deal. But that said, I think it's still going to be the salvation of the co-op, because it gets us into a cash positive situation where the cash, the deals that we're structuring now, it's cash, it's not crypto, and it's a very significant supply. Yeah, so I think it's going to be the salvation of the co-op, and I feel again very confident about that.
Okay, here's a really interesting question. Because again, someone's asking, but you already kind of alluded to this, which is well, it's kind of a backtrack, but the website says the launch of Archain mainnet was Q2 2019. According to Pythia's contract, they can get the rock and dump them on the market if the mainnet is not delivered in Q1. Um, is that can they do that?
Um,
I mean, legally, can they do that? Because I mean, I don't feel like they delivered anything. So regardless of the contract they signed in August,
they
I'm sure.
they really haven't delivered, and we have, again, the leverage that we have.
Mhm.
Again, it's not something I can speak about, but we do have very considerable leverage, independent of the written contract. So I agree that there is an escape clause for them, but
I don't
the
think
issue,
it's very well.
well,
Yeah.
our leverage, what I can say is our leverage is independent of that, and that's all I can say.
Right. Okay. Here's another question. Sorry,
Yeah.
if the deal goes through with this company, which I don't even know the name of the company,
Mhm.
but if this deal goes through, is there any possibility of the company buying a rock back on the market? Because
The
the
co-op buying
co-op,
rock from the.
yes.
That's it. I've been thinking about that. That's a really interesting option. I'm not sure that that's the best strategy, because very shortly after that, um, I think the market will begin to recognize that we have more than enough funds to
Uh-huh.
deliver what we want to deliver, and even at that point, we'll be looking at a feature set and a performance that is very convincing and compelling. So I'm going to cross that bridge when we come to it. It is a strategy I have been contemplating, and I've been contemplating it for several months. I'm still not convinced that it's the best strategy for the cooperative. I'm willing to entertain argumentation to this point, but right currently, I'm still not convinced it's the best strategy for the cooperative.
Got it. Okay. I do apologize for mentioning the gentleman's
No,
name on the broadcast.
no
I
worries.
thought it was well known, at
No,
least
no.
about the gentleman's name. But I do understand it's thin there. Um, okay. Is there anyone else want to ask questions? Because I can just keep going all day long.
YouTube chat that want to ask questions.
Go for it, John.
Well, they need to type out their questions. One is from Giancarlo. What is it? Let me go back to the YouTube. Can you ask them to?
Yeah, I mean, they can ask questions if they want. I mean, I just acknowledged the one about Pythia. I think we did a pretty good job on that. I guess the second question is how is the general code coming along, Greg? I mean, are all the devs, they're all seem to be, I hope, paid up, and everyone is sitting okay.
Yeah, everybody's sitting okay, and
Right.
what we're seeing a much better gelling of team spirit. Yeah, I'm actually really happy with what's going on with the coding. Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, are we
I mean,
still?
the one thing that I felt kind of sad about was, um, you know, there was we did a current performance testing, and it revealed some bad choices with respect to the threading model. So we're gonna have to go back and rejigger the threading model. It's not a major deal. It's the kind of thing that I was expecting, but the reason I had wanted to put some weight behind redoing the Rosette virtual machine is because it comes with a green thread model built in, and I was expecting us to hit a problem with the threading model if we took the threading model directly from the JVM, and I knew we were going to have to plug in some kind of green thread model to get the performance numbers that we wanted. But there was sort of the dev team, made a collective decision to wind down the VM, and now we're beginning to see why that was perhaps an unwise decision. I don't think we have to spin up the Rosette VM to solve the problem. We can solve it with any number of libraries here, but that was one of the many problems that the Rosette VM sorted out for us. So it's no biggie. I'm not breaking a sweat because of it, but it was something where I was like, yeah, I hate to say I told you so, but
Okay. I guess I mean I think the most positive thing in the last 3 months with development, which is probably the node releases and the partnership with Whiteblock.
That's correct. Yes.
Which they seem to be, also not extremely involved in. Well, at least I mean, I don't know about the dev communication channels, but like they seem to be very professional and quiet and just like doing their work.
No, they're actually heavily involved in the dev channels. It's just
Yeah.
not over in the
community,
exactly.
right? Exactly. So are they going when are they going to do an independent sort of performance test or stress test of the network? Because I'm sure like everyone.
I want to get that once we hit feature complete. That's the point at which I want to do some start to do the stress testing.
Got it. Okay. And what is their current contract arrangement for? Because we're still a few months out from mainnet.
Yeah. So currently what they've done is they've built a sort of testnet in a box solution, and then they're providing some hosting on a number of nodes within a testnet that they maintain. So they're providing both mechanisms for us to spin up a testnet in a box, and then they use that to host a testnet that they've provisioned using that framework. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Cool.
Okay, so next question in the chat is this is it's so funny because like I know Vlad and he does a lot of work for the Casper stuff, but it's about Vlad. Is he going to be active and engaged, or is he going to be pretty much non-existent in terms of participation? I mean, I don't know how many board meetings he missed this year or otherwise. I mean, he came out pretty vocally supportive last week about Archain. I'm sure he's being asked very hard questions as well. Do you want to comment on Vlad's participation in this dimension?
So, I mean, I really value interaction with Vlad. I value Vlad's perspective. I think he thinks a lot about not just consensus, but blockchain governance. And I think he's been thinking about it for a long time. So, but Vlad is also very careful with his energy. So he's not gonna spend a lot of thought cycles on stuff that isn't directly related to his goals to providing a good sort of correct by construction, provably safe and live protocol that has a good performance characteristics. And it's really funny, but that's a tall order, right? I mean, that's a multi-year effort right there. And the idea of having someone that focused is, I think, is great. It's great to have someone that focused on our side.
No, I hear you. I guess people are not concerned that he's not doing the work on consensus, but he's not necessarily the most active board member.
Yeah, I hear you, and maybe eventually we can sort of figure out a way to, if we need extra board cycles, some solution there. But currently, I think it's still quite good to have Vlad engaged at the board level.
Right. Okay. Next question is about sort of the general marketing of the project. I mean, right now, all funds are going towards development. We're not really spending money on marketing. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we've funneled almost every ounce of capital into dev.
Great. Okay. Another question is about the liveness issues with Casper that identified by PyroFX. That has already been sort of fleshed out.
I've kind of talked about that. This is,
Yeah.
And there was a long thread on Twitter where people sort of dived into the details of that. There was the PyroFX's assumptions about what is Casper and what isn't were a little how do I say they weren't making well-founded assumptions about what Casper is and what Casper isn't. So unless you impose some synchrony constraints, and we've left those as parameters to the existing protocol, of course you're not going to get a live protocol. You have to impose the synchrony constraints, and that's well understood. And we explained this to the PyroFX developers, and in fact the entire dev team, over a year ago. And in fact, the entire dev team was involved in a vote with regard to choices there. And so it's not like they weren't apprised of this. And more to the point, if they really wanted to have a good technical debate, well, they know where to find us, right? It's not like it's not like they don't know when the Casper stand-ups happened or how to engage us. So it was just it was kind of a bunch of marketing on their part, and I'm not going to fault them for it, but it's mostly hype, not a lot of good argumentation. That said, I guess what I would say is I have a really nice framework now for a wide variety of liveness constraints, and I'm looking forward to writing that up and sharing that with people. Kent and I sort of walked through some of it. I think it was on Friday, and I've been talking with Vlad and folks about the basic setup. And yeah, I think we're getting to a place, which is what Vlad and I wanted, where we've got a space of parameters to explore with the protocol, and that's really important because we need to be able to tune the protocol to lots of different deployment situations. And that is going to give us a much more realistic protocol. So I'm feeling very, very happy about the way we're reasoning about liveness now. And so if people are interested in that, come to the Casper stand-ups. There's going to be rich and vigorous discussion beginning in 2019.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So another question is, what is the monthly budget that's going to the dev team right now?
Yeah. So yeah, sure. I mean, we're burning about a little over 650, 700, and a good 80-90% of that goes to dev.
Got it. Okay. And what's the percentage of like the total budget every month? Is it like 5% of the treasury, or?
Oh, a percentage of the percent. I don't have those numbers with me. Kenny would be the person to talk to about that. Yeah. I apologize. I wasn't prepared to have that discussion.
No problem. Yeah. Get into the weeds here. Another question is, can I use the immersive technology if I want to build a decentralized application with RChain? I don't
Can you use the immersive technology if you want to use? Yes, the short answer to that is yes. Um, we can talk through the details. I'd have to understand whoever was asking that question. I'd need to know exactly what you were planning on doing. But the short answer to that is yes.
Got it. Okay.
Do you
So
mean the immersion technology or the R song?
the immersive technology
The
specifically.
if they are interested in using the codec, for example,
Okay.
that can be arranged. But like I said, I need to know what their use case is before I can get into the details of that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So another question, and Greg, I know you've already addressed this, but this is again not a stab at you, but I mean personally, I think a lot of people would like to see you step down from the board.
Okay, I got you. I guess the next.
Whoa.
It's
Anyway, so I've addressed this like several times. So the right time and the time when I was planning to step down is about the time that we finished off the Mercury backlog post mainnet, and we're going to engage in the Venus feature set. At that point, I really need to free up some cycles in order to do the tech, and so I can't have day-to-day responsibilities at that point. It's natural and has been planned for quite some time for me to step down from day-to-day stuff, and that was in the plan that we presented to the board, and those are the expectations of the board. So we have a rough timeline for that, and all of that was published at this point months ago. So it was like less
yeah.
than a month after the second AGM meeting. We sort of talked about the plan and the timeline and all of that. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's a natural thing, and what we hope for in terms of getting to a more and more decentralized organization.
Um, awesome. Oh well, I'm not going to say awesome. Not. We'll just see how that works out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's addressed again for everyone.
Hmm.
Another question is, and this is actually kind of an interesting question. Uh, why do you think so many? Oh, sorry, so few people are paying attention to our chain? Why are you so confident? That's one for you for sure.
Well, I'm confident, A, because I know how the technology performs. I know, and I've built a similar system at internet scale and built like large scale applications on top of it. And so this isn't my first rodeo with this tech. This is I've done this before, and I know more or less how it plays out, and I know what the other solutions offer, and why what they're offering um, doesn't match up feature for feature. So we've already begun to see the performance numbers, and we'll see more of those as we get the code base a little more stable. And then on top of the performance numbers, we have security solutions that are many times better, and are impressing the hell out of the people who are in the know in terms of the tech. So I feel very, very confident about the tech. Um, and that grows out of the whole correct by construction methodology. You work out the math, then you work out how the math relates to the software, and then you have a system that you can prove things about. And so that's what gives you confidence. Like you don't have to do a lot of arguing, yelling and shouting and drawing bubbles and arrows on a whiteboard. You can just do the calculations and say this is how the system is going to behave, and then lo and behold, the software behaves that way. So that's kind of the point of the methodology. um, the With respect to the confidence on the market, well, you know, again, those people who understand the tech know what a gym we've got, and those are the people that we're largely dealing with, and that's where we're focusing all of our deals. And so when we're dealing with people who actually understand the tech, they are very, very impressed, whether it's with respect to our song or with respect to our chain. They're incredibly impressed, and they're impressed by the partners that we've chosen, and that makes them willing to enter into deals with us. I wish I could say more about those deals right now, but when we're in active negotiations, I can't say much. I'd love to be as transparent as possible, but in terms of active negotiations, I'm just literally not allowed to say these things on live streamed stuff. Um,
Got it. Well,
yeah.
I would just like to add, I look at the co-op sort of a similar function as the Ethereum Foundation. Ethereum Foundation is not in the news. It's not doing marketing.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if I'm just going to leave it there. That's just the way I look at it. So people are expecting this like huge marketing push and all. It's just like this company, this organization is set up to help govern the direction of the technology. This is not like a corporation or a for-profit. Well, we're getting revenue from the VC firms, but it's still not a for-profit. I mean, is it a for-profit
Well,
organization? Press the philosophy,
legally, we are for profit, but we're not.
right,
Our
right.
our aim is not to maximize profits for shareholders, right? That's not our aim. Our aim is to make the platform viable, right? And to keep it viable for some, many decades into the future. So that's sort of the function of the cooperative itself.
Well,
Um,
now that the burn rate is 90% dev, do you expect that ratio to stay at 70+%? The next few years. I mean, it should be dev heavy, right? In terms of the actual.
I really want to keep
Sorry,
it.
I wanna just say it cannot be 90% dev. I
I
think
didn't
Kenny is
say.
not here.
Yeah, we'll
So
get Kenny on the line and get the actual
yeah,
numbers, but it's somewhere in the range, and it depends on how you count project managers and things like that. If you're counting them towards dev or if you're counting them as overhead, but we can, it's almost exclusively put towards dev. Um, yeah, there's very little overhead in the organization at this point that isn't directly related to getting dev done. There is some biz dev and there is some marketing, but nothing by comparison to the way we were doing it before.
Got it.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we got rid of all
Almost everyone.
all of our marketing, but 2 people.
Right. So I guess the next question, I just want to keep these in order, is the tax situation next year. Do we want to get into that now?
I mean, the tax situation is. No, I'm not going to speak to that in detail,
Right.
but there's a way to structure the tax situation so that the obligation shows up at a time that's more advantageous to the co-op, and that's a fairly standard strategy for most organizations, is to set up their fiscal year so that their taxes are due at a time that's advantageous for them.
Right. Okay. So I mean, here's another question that was just in the Zoom chat. Just trying to structure this the best way. I mean, is the co-op as a nonprofit on paper or a for-profit?
On
Uh,
paper, the co-op is for profit.
okay, so there must be some confusion there. So I just wanted to be very clear about that.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so this is again another question about: is there a possibility that the board a board member will buy rock from the market? I don't think any of the board members are going to go out to the market and start buying rock. They're
I
free to do
haven't. Board members are free to do that. I haven't spoken to any
right,
board member that has those plans, but I don't discuss those kinds of plans with board members.
right, exactly.
So
Oh, so do you see? Okay, I just need to go up here a little bit because I skipped over something. We'll be there. Oh, yeah. So, okay. People, I guess, are sort of anxious about missing the deadline for mainnet because there's no, I mean, is the entire development right now under very good supervision now that Meta has
oh
left?
oh
Transition.
yeah, actually much better, much better. There were so many things that were well, I mean, basically, when Meta left was when this shit was going to hit the fan. right, that was exactly when we were going to start to see whether the code was of proper quality or not, and also the structure of the team was of proper quality or not. So there were very specific asks that I made that were ignored. So specifically, I asked that every feature set be tag teamed, and that wasn't done. And as a result, when we brought the team in house, there were features that didn't have dev on them that were up to speed, and so we've had to do the right sort of lateralization and cross pollination across the teams so that everyone is more or less up to speed on all the features, which is the way I like to run things. I much prefer cross disciplinary, multilateral engagement on the code base, for precisely because if you silo things and if you've got one person working on something and they get a better offer somewhere else, you're screwed. So we're now at a point where we're shaking out the bugs. We're getting the platform a lot more stable, and the team is much more apprised of the actual requirements of the platform, and they're engaged in building the acceptance criteria for each of the different features, to down to providing a living document where we can see whether or not we're hitting acceptance criteria for all the features. So this was what needed to happen, and I'm really grateful that things have shaken out the way they have, because now we're starting to get the quality assurance that we should have been doing all along. And that's also true. We saw a similar kind of thing on the IT properties, right? So the IT properties were not well architected. So there's like dev.archain.coop, and the other websites, they were not well architected, and they were basically a nightmare to maintain. They were kind of a you know spaghetti bowl, and that has been also rectified. So basically, this consolidation has it hit us a little bit in terms of our timeline, but it's been the best thing possible in terms of quality of the offering. Um, we've improved on a lot of these things and reduced the cost on a lot of these things. So now we have in many cases we have things that are um, uh, costing us less to develop, so they can be done by a smaller number of people, and yet they're providing much better coverage. So this is I feel, and then on top of that, we now have the right kind of engagement, in terms of technical leadership. So as always, I meet with the dev team at least once a week, and usually with certain developers, I'm meeting 2 or 3 times a week, and then we have 3 project managers, right? So we have Ned and Deanna and Kelly, and that sort of builds in the sort of the the right different levels of perspective with respect to requirements and code. So I feel really happy about the kind of leadership that we've um, and oversight and engagement. And from what I'm hearing, the dev team is also they're responding. They feel engaged and happy and productive.
Got it. Okay. Now again, this is going to be more of definitely a reflection question, but like, I guess why was it just overconfidence? Not to put the quality assurance measures in place to sort of like watch everything like a hawk. I mean, I guess the question is,
It's yeah, it's a good question. Um, I I can't speak to why the project was managed the way it was managed before, but in terms of how we're managing it now, um, well, stability is king, right? We want to go from stable release to stable release, and
well,
that's how things have to be done.
well, to be fair as well, I mean, there was a contractual obligation of PyroFX. The co-op wasn't fully managing the entire project development up until the devs came on board. Is that correct? Or is that not
Um,
really want to structure it in terms of the response? Is that like a fair
Well, it, the the contract was neutral with respect to how it was managed, right? So at the end of the day, we brought in some management via Pyrofex, and that's the way we felt that it would be most efficient. That in hindsight, that turned out not to be the best solution. But you know, what I would say is that always the direction has been from the co-op, and then day-to-day management was given over to Pyrofex. And now that's changed, so that the direction is from the co-op, and the day-to-day management is also from the co-op, and that's just a better arrangement at this point.
Got it. Okay. The you know, will we potentially be able to get co-op financial reports quarterly?
Oh,
Bef
yes.
Okay,
No,
perfect.
we've been doing that, absolutely. So we have, the, Hunt Jackson is doing quarterly compilations.
Got it.
And yeah, absolutely.
Okay, now this is hopefully a more fun question, not so serious. Is what is your view about row calculus potential applications to software AI automation? So can row calculus be used with AI automation or any type of AI work?
So there's a very, very large range of AI automation kinds of things. Um, so let me talk about two application areas, and but then just say that these are just two of many. So first of all, the key idea of adding reflection to directly to the calculus um, greatly helps with AI kinds of problems. So let's talk about software automation in terms of one, getting the an IDE. So like developers who are familiar with IntelliJ or some of the other major IDEs know that the IDEs are now smart enough to help with um, the refactoring of code. And so there are transformations that the development environment can do, such as refactoring methods from one class to another, or splitting an interface, or renaming interfaces. These are all sort of bread and butter kinds of things that are very easy to do um, with an IDE. Now, with the behavioral type system that is coming in Venus, Rholang enables one to refactor on the basis of type. And so there are type-based design patterns, um, such as, for example, eliminating races, or eliminating deadlocks or deadly embraces. These are the kinds of things that we can catch at the type level, and then do automated refactoring. Likewise, you can go, for example, in a type-based way, you could go from a library that's asynchronous to a library that's synchronous, or you could go the other way around, from synchronous to asynchronous, because there's a built-in notion of buffering, or handshake. So those things could be introduced as transformations that are semantics preserving under certain assumptions. Um, that would greatly automate or facilitate uh, um, uh, software development from that perspective. Now, that's not traditional AI, but it's leveraging type-based patterns. Now, to get more in the direction of traditional AI, let me just throw out a few pieces of brain candy. Um, One is, there's such a thing as genetic programming. So in genetic programming, you actually synthesize pieces of code, um, from because you have a higher level description of the code. So you have a you could think of you can think of how do I say this? In John Holland's work on adaptation in natural and artificial systems, he 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 provides a kind of abstract view of evolutionary processes that you can implement in software, and you can apply this view to code, but it's much, much, much easier if the system which you're expressing code has a reflective capacity. So, in particular, you can think of the row calculus capability of turning a process into a name, which basically reifies the process into its code. That code object can be used in processes like crossover to do genetic programming. So that's and you can take that quite far. Now it gets even more interesting once you start adding types, because you can use the types to govern how you combine and recombine, the genetic material, which is the code itself. So I'd love to do like a whole session on this, but let me move on to a different area of application, which is using the built-in features of Rholang to go after what used to be called expert systems, or other kinds of inferencing mechanisms. So, in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of work done on using languages like Prolog to infer facts. So you start from some set of ground facts, you have some rules, and when you combine those two, you can actually infer additional information which wasn't present necessarily explicitly in the data that you have in your knowledge base. So let me give sort of the traditional example is something like, all men are mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is immortal. And you can code that up in Prolog pretty straightforwardly. But let's think about a situation like, an identity situation. So Rick is at a particular concert, and at a particular time, and Rick says that he sees Summer, and he says that within the sort of the temporal bounds of being at the concert. That means that you can infer that Summer is at the concert. So now, when you think about questions about on identity, you can use information like that, these kinds of inferencing systems, to prove interesting properties about the presence or absence of someone, and how that correlates to their online identity. So there's lots and lots of rich application area there. Um, and it turns out that the row calculus enables you to do that kind of the Prolog style inferencing, and not just row calculus, but Rholang itself is specifically set up to provide all the building blocks for a Prolog style inferencing mechanism, but in a concurrency setting. So you can do what was kind of the holy grail of those kinds of inferencing systems, which is the multi-agent reasoning. You can do multi-agent reasoning in Rholang, because it's basically a multi-agent reasoning toolkit, which allows you to do all of this stuff that was kind of contemplated by the AI community around multi-agent reasoning. That's all available in Rholang. So let me give you an example. In Prolog, there's this idea of a unification. So we get a version of unification built in to the pattern matching capabilities of Rholang. And then in addition to the unification piece that is necessary to implement a Prolog style system, you also need to be able to do backtracking. And the interesting thing about Rholang is that the continuations are explicit. They're a part of in fact, you can do, you can reduce every Rholang program to a form that's called continuation saturated. So it doesn't, it's not able to make progress except, or every step, every step of a program um, uh, uh, entails passing a continuation. So all the continuations are first class, and it's already, you can already see this basic shape in the IO components of Rholang. So the for comprehension, the continuation is explicit, which enables you to build the backtracking because your continuations are effectively first class. So you can, so it's a multi-agent reasoning toolkit. So that's just two areas that we've talked about. So um, you can do type-based refactoring of code, and that plugs into genetic programming. And one of the first applications of that would be as a much more sophisticated fuzzer or testing system for the platform itself. And then the other side of this is multi-agent reasoning, which can be applied directly to identity solutions. So those are two areas where Rholang and the RhoCalc have very deep and profound applications in AI automated software development. Long-winded answer, sorry, but this kind of stuff is fun.
It's okay. Um, well, I guess we're nearing the top of the hour, but there's like
Yep.
just a few more quick questions. Will there be a side chain or a sister chain of our chain?
The nice thing about our sharding solution is if there is, then we should be able to just mount the side chain as a part of the chain. If they're asking for the current sharding solution effectively, this kind of uh, layer one kind of solution. Um, uh, um, so I'm not really sure where the question is coming from, but the sharding solution itself is kind of sidechain like in a certain way. But that's only the generation one sharding solution. We have a much more um, powerful sharding solution coming down the pipe after mainnet. Um, But in either event, if there exists a side chain, then the whole point of our chain is that can be mounted as a shard, and it's to both chains' advantage to mount each other as shards, because then they can take advantages of both network effects. And that's kind of how we've hoped all along that there would be sort of interchain interoperation. If you architect this right, I mean, we know for a fact that there's never going to be one chain uber alles. There will be chain interoperation, and we've tried to architect our chain in such a way that interchain interoperation is a built-in feature of our chain. So it's good if there are side chains because you just mount them and away you go.
Got it. Okay. See where we're at. Are there non-fungible tokens, stable coins expected to be on the platform?
Yes, absolutely. I really wish Kenny were here because he could talk specifically to what our strategy is there. So since he's the MakerDAO stablecoin expert guy, I would love to have his opinion on this. I've kind of left those solutions to him and not wanted to dive in too much to that. But the short answer to that question is yes.
Got it. Okay. I think I may have missed part of this question. Oh, okay. before that one. If you want to build an R chain today, who can you contact?
If you want to build on our chain today,
Yeah. If you want to build something on our chain, like a DApp or otherwise.
well, contact me, contact Kayvon, contact Ned. Those are your first, your first line of inquiry, and if we can't help you, we'll get you to someone who can help you. But certainly Ned, Kayvon, and myself, we're all here to help with that.
Got it. Okay.
And the if I we the R song DApp is set up as a application template. So if the people want to just get something going out of the box, they just fork our song and jiggle a little bit of the code, and they can have their own data market application up and running in literally a few minutes.
Got it. Okay. Is it possible to build something like WeChat or
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, totally. The biggest cost for those kinds of applications is not the back end part. I feel that we can do a really bang up job with a chat system on top of our chain. The hardest part is the front end, like getting a compelling user experience. Um, I mean, I don't find the WeChat user experience all that compelling, but I know that there was a lot of work put into it, and probably if I were left to my own devices, I doubt I could do even as good a job. But far and away, the bulk of the cost in chat applications and communication applications is the front end experience, the user experience at the device and level, the device interface. That's the hard part.
Got it. Okay. And this is a question I missed apparently, which was how many developers right now are currently being paid by Archain? Like how many people are on the team in terms of development?
It's like 12.
Got it. Okay. There you go. Some guy asked about scenario. Do you want to talk about any? And that's so long ago, dude. Like,
I've completely forgotten scenario. I mean,
yeah. I mean, it's all public.
yeah, it's all public. Exactly. Yeah.
It's all there.
Yeah.
I think that's. Are we doing Casper tomorrow, Greg? That's something I need to ask.
I'm available and I have lots to
Okay.
talk about. So I'll be up at that time and ready to go. If nobody shows up, then we can just
Next
close
time.
the call. Yeah, exactly.
I think that's pretty close to being it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I really thank you for taking the time to chat and to put together the live stream, especially on a Sunday night for us. And I also want to thank the community. It's like there are a lot of really good folks here in the community. A lot of people who put in a lot of hard work and given us a lot of time. And I feel really good about the work we've done, and I feel very confident that we will be delivering mainnet in a reasonable time frame, and looking forward to people using the platform.
Right. Well, there it is. 32 people watching. Another question just came in. Can you build an exchange on top of our chain? Like that's definitely possible.
Yes, absolutely, and that's a scenario that we're contemplating with a partner. So yes.
Cool. All right. Well, if we don't shut it off, we're just gonna keep going. We can go 5
For
hours.
yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna but thanks again, and I really wish a good happy new year to everyone. Looking forward to working with everyone in 2019. Hey, Crispin.
Yeah. What's up? I can't hear you, John.
Who's been asking? Let's make sure we double back to Gianfranco, who's been asking a bunch of questions in the chat window.
Where? I'm looking at it. Jean.
In the YouTube chat window.
Yeah, I mean, the only one I didn't get to was scenario.
No, he wants contact information. We need to double back.
I'm not signed into Google right now, and I'm not sending emails.
Oh no! I said we need to double back later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
fine, sure.
I just want him to hear that
Oh,
we
yeah.
acknowledge his request.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean-
so John Franco, please join the Discord if you're not in Discord. I'm Lighterhouse on Discord. If you want
go.
contact information, contact me and I'll get you sorted out.
There it is. There, and Discord is all, those links are available on YouTube. So
Yep, absolutely.
and also, guys, everyone just on this call and otherwise listening, I will be cutting the bit about
Yeah,
the-
yeah,
I will be cutting that immediately after this. So
Sweet.
yeah. So there'll be a second copy uploaded with that edited, but until that's been uploaded, this broadcast will stay up. So I'm gonna get on that immediately. So you might see another video being uploaded with the same title in the next 45 minutes.
Appreciate it.
Cool.
Talk to you later, guys. Ciao, ciao.
Later. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks.
Ciao, ciao.